right, what's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday. It's a pretty cold and blustery night here in New York City. We're on 57th Street again on the corner of Madison Avenue, looking towards 5th Avenue. Tiffany Building, the Crown Building, Amman, New York. But it is a pretty nice night, at least it's clear out. We'll do one kind of panoramic shot up the beautiful 432 Park Avenue. This is the Harry Mackelow building, one of the tallest residential apartment buildings in New York City. And we're also walking past the newly opened Four Seasons Hotel, which is quite exciting. It's good to see that that's back open. We'll get started in a moment, everybody. We're going to be talking about a wide range of topics. You can see they decorated the front of the Four Seasons here. Alan, what's going on? Joe Driver, cheers. Professor Dario, Lena Sandoval, good to see you. Hopefully everybody's staying warm. I see Joe Hernandez. What's up, Joe? Happy holidays to you. Hopefully you had a good Thanksgiving week. Vincent, Desi, thanks for joining. Connie Ruiz, New England Crypto, as always. Good to see you. Well, we have some SEC news, right? I mean, I think the Trump administration is pretty close to picking the new SEC chair. Nothing set in stone yet, I don't think, but pretty close. I mean, what have you guys heard? Jacqueline Anderson says greetings from Virginia. Good to see you, Jacqueline. The joyful one. Brad's brain, as always. Now, Brad, today I was looking at my monitors, and I have one particular monitor set to 4 specific stocks, one of which being the one and only Palantir. Man, is that thing still on a tear. Congrats to all longs. I know that you have a pretty sizable stake in that company, I guess. This is the corner of Park Avenue right here. You have the Aston Martin showroom. Oh, by the way, before we get started, speaking of the Aston Martin showroom, did anybody see the new Jaguar vehicles that came out? Now, I guess originally they launched some sort of advertising campaign that was interpreted as woke, and it was not received well. Let's just say that. But the cars actually kind of look cool, I'm not going to lie. Anyway, we had a temporary, how do we say this, martial law over in South Korea, which lasted, I think, 2 hours. There was some major currency movements there. And essentially the central bank came out and said they're going to provide as much liquidity as needed to stabilize markets. So more endless money printing. We'll talk about that. Reggie 44 says 3 hours. Yeah, that came. I got an alert because the currency pairs were going crazy. Pretty wild stuff. Anyway, we also have some nuclear power news, everybody. That's been a big theme or a big thematic that we've been discussing and talking about throughout pretty much the course of the last 3 months. So we're going to talk about Mark Zuckerberg and what that means for nuclear energy. And then we'll do a little bit of a dive into our good friend Mark Benioff. Salesforce reported earnings today. A nice beat, a little bit of a raise. They raised the guidance on the lower end of the guidance. And I think the stock's up 10% after hours. gapping into new all-time record highs. This is the auction house here at 432 Park, and I believe Mark Benioff made an appearance on Mad Money, which is Jim Cramer's program. And it was kind of funny. A lot of people were giving Jim Cramer a hard time on X or on Twitter today because he tweeted out, wow, today was a really great day for AI, right? Because Benioff had a lot of good things to say about it. And there's a big, I would say, like meme on Wall Street that every time Jim Cramer recommends something, the exact opposite happens. So it was kind of a funny laugh. Anyway, we'll just do the nightly audio and visual check. So if you guys can hear us, also if we're streaming in 1080p, just leave a thumbs up in the chat, and then we'll get started here momentarily. Lots of interesting topics tonight, lots of interesting conversations. And today was a very eventful day for me. A pretty interesting day, let's just say that. A very, very interesting day. This is the Phillips auction house. Some beautiful pieces here. Now this is a good view because you have the Four Seasons Hotel and you have 432 Park as well. All right, well, it looks like we can get started, everybody. It looks like the audio is good. The visual is good. So good evening and welcome back to Walks on Wall Street. Today is a blustery, cold, and a little bit windy Tuesday night here in Manhattan. We had a new all-time record high for the S&P 500. Now, an all-time record high closing. I believe yesterday or Monday's trading day, we had a record intraday high, but today we had a record closing high for the S&P. So that's pretty exciting. Salesforce, which is really the pioneer in SaaS, software as a service. Mark Benioff and company reported a pretty solid quarter. The stock had a great reaction to earnings. I believe up 9 or 10% after hours, gapping into new record high territory for Salesforce. Now, one of the things I really enjoy every time Salesforce reports earnings is that Benioff goes on his X account or his Twitter account, whichever you want to call it, and updates the annual revenue since the inception of the company. And it's really just interesting to see the exponential growth and the scalability of those businesses, right? One of the things we talk about all the time on the broadcast is, when we're thinking about an investment, right, we want to invest in something that is hyper scalable. And SaaS, software as a service, cloud, particularly Benioff's business, which is a CRM, which is a customer relationship management component with a bunch of AI chat tools and the like. Now they're a big data company as well. They acquired Slack. This was about, I think 2021 was that acquisition. So it's a super scalable business and a very sticky business, meaning there's a high volume of reoccurring revenue. So pretty good quarter for Salesforce. Now, we have some interesting news, right? On last night's broadcast, we talked about thematic investing. What are going to be the main themes for 2025, right? What are going to be the main investment themes? Is it going to be electric vehicles? Is it going to be self-driving? Is it going to be AI, cloud computing? Is it going to be cryptocurrency and Bitcoin? Right? What are the main themes here? Is it going to be healthcare, consumer staples? Well, one of the themes that we've been talking about quite often has been nuclear power and nuclear energy. Now, as we've discussed, almost every single major tech company, I would say in the Magnificent Seven. Oh, this is a cool view of the Four Seasons. You can see the big Christmas tree right in the lobby. Anyway, but almost every single company in the Mag 7, from Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Google, all the major hyperscalers, right, have either created partnerships or have made direct investments in nuclear power startups or have signed contracts with nuclear power companies to provide power to AI data centers. Now we have some breaking news out of Meta, ticker symbol META. Mark Zuckerberg obviously being the CEO. There's some breaking news that they are going to accept RFPs or requests for proposals to build nuclear reactors. I believe they're targeting 1 to 4 gigawatts. And I was reading that I think the average nuclear power plant is about 1 gigawatt of capacity. So they're going to make a massive investment in nuclear power to, you guessed it, power AI and data centers. So as we think about where the puck is going, right, to use Wayne Gretzky's saying, right, kind of ripping it off from him, all of the greatest minds in tech, right, from the greatest minds at Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, and now Meta are telling us that in order for artificial intelligence to be a thing, and everybody is betting on it being a thing, we need a new power infrastructure. What we have now is not going to cut it. And if you want to win the race to AI, you're going to need to take matters in your own hands and start investing in that infrastructure and maybe even building nuclear infrastructure on premise. Pretty interesting stuff. So I think one of my goals for 2025 is to understand the business and the engineering behind nuclear power a little bit more, because frankly put, I'm not an expert in it, right? I think there's a lot of money to be made there. That is the future, and it's essentially all of the smartest people in the world are telling us we need to double down, if not triple down, on nuclear energy. So with that being said, everybody, let me go ahead and say hello to everybody in the chat, and we will kick the stream off. I see Joe E. What's going on? Philip is here. Says, hey Tom, how's everybody doing? I'm doing very well. Jack's a small nuclear reactor in your basement for your computer. We are so done. Well, there's actually, I think Bill Gates, what is it, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but now it's just Bill Gates after the divorce. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. They made a significant investment in a small cell nuclear reactor company that can spin up these small cell reactors to be put in place on premise. Pretty interesting. DC322, what's going on? I see Vincent, Frank, Esmeralda, Jack, NBA Elias, always a pleasure. Reggie44. New England Crypto says, Tom, I had a call with the team over at Peter Saddington's company. Looks like we will be working together. Thank you, my friend. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Peter's a really super smart guy. So I think you're going to be in good hands. Very cool. Mary says, can you show us the shining snowflake? We can. This is right on the corner of 5th Avenue and 57th Street. The city is looking quite festive today. Al is here, Stan Harbor, Unit J23. Jimmy Hook. Hope everybody's doing good. Michelle Henry. Jack Jackson. Kevin says, Tom, you're totally right about nuclear, but I also think of a person with smart. They would look into hydrogen to companies. Yeah, so I've read into that a little bit. And I actually watched an interview with Elon Musk kind of debating somebody on the benefits, kind of doing like a compare and contrast of hydrogen and nuclear and solar. Again, I'm not the expert here. This really is in my wheelhouse. Maybe we do have some engineers in the chat, but for whatever reason, right? I mean, here's kind of my thesis about the whole thing. I'm not a nuclear engineer. I'm not an engineer at all. But it seems as if all of the smartest people, quite literally, and all the smartest and the wealthiest people have come to a consensus. Would we agree? Like, we've come to an ultimatum. The team over at Amazon with Andy Jassy, the team Sunder over at Google, Oracle, Larry Ellison, all the big tech giants, right? And now Mark Zuckerberg, one of the wealthiest, youngest, smartest individuals on the planet. They're all like, yeah, this nuclear thing is it. We're going to place our bets here. They haven't really placed their bets on hydrogen or anything else. Now, I don't know why, right? But as an investor, I kind of like to skate to where the puck is going, and I would consider myself like an intermediate term trend trader. So I could identify the people in the marketplace that are smart, that do have the expertise, and look for potential investments with what kind of they're running with. So I don't know. One thing that we could all agree on, right? We could disagree about what's going to be the future of energy. Is it going to be solar? Is it going to be wind? Is it going to be this or that, right? We could have the arguments all day. But one thing is for certain, that all of the world's smartest people that run the world's most profitable companies, quite literally, have chosen nuclear for one reason or another. And I think that's very, very telling. So I don't want to bet against Zuckerberg. I don't want to bet against Andy Jassy over at AWS. So maybe this is the way, which is very positive, because this will get us to the promised land, so to speak, as we are walking outside of the GM building, because we want to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. We want a greener and cleaner world, right? I think we would all agree on that. And nuclear power seems to be a very good solution to those problems. I want to be GMO. Says nuclear and hydrogen are an exclusive. They have synergies. Arlos, Oklahoma, crushing pipeline crossroads of the world, $5.2 billion for a new refinery, 4 years behind. Let me take a screenshot of that. Now, you know what I think is going to be interesting in terms of energy and power? Trudeau and Trump, I think, are really going to need to work together here. I think there could be some interesting, to use GMO's word, synergies between the Canadians and the Americans in terms of maybe building a pipeline, oil production, things like that. So we'll see. Oh, that's right. Peter says they lit the Bryant Park Christmas tree a couple hours ago. Let's actually go down there and check it out. I just wanted to quickly check out the trees here outside the GM building. Just do a quick lap around the plaza. Jack says nuclear fission. We only need to find a metal to withstand the heat of the sun. Here's a good shot of the Plaza Hotel. Oh, I have an interesting story. Today was an interesting day. I had a run-in first thing in the morning when I was kind of heading into the office. I bumped right into Anthony Scaramucci, our good friend Anthony. Now, my office is right there, 575 Madison Avenue. I believe Skybridge, which is Anthony's firm, is 2 doors down from me, adjacent to Jeffries. So I said hello to Anthony, who's oftentimes a common topic as it relates to Bitcoin and crypto on the show here. But number 2, I was at a dinner, I apologize. I was at a lunch today. Okay, and this was pretty unbelievable. I was almost like starstruck, and I'll tell you why. I went to Gallagher's Steakhouse for lunch, and when I was checking in, waiting to be seated, you know who I bump into? I'll tell you who I bump into. I bump into Bill Hwang. Seriously. And the reason why I was a little bit starstruck is because we all know, right, we've done, a live stream on this. Bill Hwang, for those of you who don't know, was the founder of Archegos, right? So Bill Hwang is a spin-off from, well, I should say he was an original one of the original hedge funders that worked for Julian Robertson, at Tiger Management. And all of the analysts, or all the people who worked for Julian Robertson, broke off and started their own hedge funds. I would say the most notable one is actually right here in this building, above the plaza, Chase Coleman's Tiger Management. And then Bill Wang spun off his Archegos and turned it into a family office, which subsequently went on to crash and burn and take out a major banking player known as Credit Suisse. So I'm in Gallagher's, and I run into him. I'm like, whoa, because he got sentenced to 18 years in prison. So I'm like, how is he here eating lunch? Well, it turns out, I believe he has another sentencing in Lower Manhattan, January 20th, I believe. But it was just pretty wild to see him eating there, because at the very, very height of that chaos, right, the Archegos fallout, his firm lost about $30 billion. And I think the banks, which, were his clearing houses, right, his clearing brokers, lost about $10 billion. So I was like, wow, it was just, first thing in the morning, run into Anthony Scaramucci. Second thing, you run into Bill Wang of Archegos. And I'm like, I don't know. It was just a weird experience. Many of you probably don't care, but it was just a very weird experience, because you're seeing somebody eat, in like a nice steakhouse. And, this guy was once worth, probably at the height of Archegos, he's probably worth like, $80 billion. And now he's going to, he's 60 years old. He'll probably spend the rest of his life in jail, right? Or most of the rest of his life in jail. He's going to be serving 18 years. So it was just like, this was one of his last probably meals walking around Midtown Manhattan. So it was a very interesting and kind of strange experience. So we ran into some big Wall Street titans today. First Anthony Scaramucci, and then Bill Wang. Now, I think it's important just to kind of do a little bit of history on the hedge fund business, understand the collapse of Archegos, and why was it important? Right? Why does it matter? Well, as I've kind of mentioned before, as we look up here on 57th Street and 5th Avenue, this is the new Tiffany building. If you're interested in the hedge fund business, I would really do some research and understand and watch some documentaries and read some books on Julian Robertson, who is the founder of hedge funds, one of the most successful hedge fund managers. He passed away. And most people who worked for him or worked directly for him went off and started their own hedge funds. And those hedge funds went on to be known as the Tiger Cubs, right? So each individual, person who worked for Julian Robertson, like Chase Coleman, who his hedge fund is literally right through this door on the right, those are the Tiger Cubs. And the problem with Archegos, the reason why it was such a calamity and a debacle, is because he was on a ridiculous amount of leverage. I'm talking about, 4 or 5x. But not only with one bank, right? So he would go to Goldman Sachs and he'd say, hey, I want to buy Viacom stock. Lever me up to the gills, 4x, right? Usually you have to disclose your other positions that you hold at other banks, right? So let's say if you have stock positions in Morgan Stanley, let's say if you have stock positions at Credit Suisse, said, you know what? I'm not going to disclose the positions. We're good for the money. Don't worry about it. So here was the problem. They went to Goldman Sachs, got crazy amount of leverage, 4x, piled into one individual stock. Then they would go to the next bank, get approved for even more leverage, and buy the same exact stock with those other banks, like Morgan Stanley and the like, right? This whole Archegos scandal unscathed. There's an interesting story about Rich Handler, the CEO of Jefferies, kind of really absolving the company of any issue because he sold the positions immediately and got out, and Credit Suisse was really left holding the bag. So you could imagine the amount of money from one individual piled into one individual stock or a few individual stocks, driving up these stock prices. And as the prices of the stock started to go down, well, he had to sell shares. And then every single other bank was like, wait, who is this big whale selling shares of Viacom when we are also need to, meet a margin call for this same stock? So that's where kind of the fraud came in to the whole Archegos scandal. And that led to the, there was many reasons, but that was one of the many reasons that led to the demise of Credit Suisse, which is now absorbed by UBS. So interesting times here for Archegos. Carol Reevy, what's going on? Good to see you. Hope you're well. Vincent Lee. Looks like we got a Cybertruck. Joel PM. Love the look of the Cybertruck there. NBA Elias is crazy. I thought Bill Wang had a suite at Rikers Island. He must be out on bail. No, he was there. He was there today. And, NBA Elias, that's kind of why I was a little bit it was like seeing a ghost, kind of. You know what I mean? Because, we covered that about 2 weeks ago. His sentencing, I think, was 2 weeks ago. He got sentenced to 18 years in prison. So my thought is that he's already gone, but I guess he has another sentencing early 2025, which is quite interesting. So anyway, so you never know really who you're going to run into in New York City. I mean, it's such a big city, very highly concentrated with a lot of, finance people. So that was my run-ins for the day. Now, what lessons can we draw from this? Don't lever up. Leverage kills. I think Warren Buffett and, at the time, Charlie Munger, God rest his soul, made a comment on kind of the whole Archegos situation. And they're like, you got to avoid leverage. Stay away from leverage. Leverage kills. NBA Elias, Tom, you've probably heard. Yeah, I did. That's sad. That was, I think that was 2 days ago. That's a shame. Well, he was old. I think he was over 80 years old. Yeah, Doc 7, do not commit crimes. That's true as well. That's, the obvious one. But from like an investing lesson we could all learn. If you're having a good year and you are, levering up, don't be greedy. That's a really good lesson on Wall Street and greed, too. You can watch some of the documentaries that were put out on Bloomberg about Archegos. The family office at a time, I think at its max was like $90 billion. Like, how much more money do you need, right? I mean, he could have just taken his profits, turned back the leverage, but he continued to shop more leverage at all of the different banks and pile into these stocks that had very, very low liquidity. So the movements in the stock was just him. So in order to get out, and this is why, oftentimes on the live stream, we will cover, Wyckoff theory, Richard Wyckoff, right, and the composite operator in these stocks. Right, so when you see these massive, massive volumes hitting these stocks, this isn't like, you and me buying. These are the big institutional players on Wall Street. So if you want to get a full position on, sometimes it'll take an institution a month or two to get a full position on, right? And vice versa, right? If they want to take profits and they want to liquidate that whole position, it could take them a month or two, right? Depending on the size of the position, because if you just market sold all your shares, you would be all the daily volume of the stock and you would crash the stock. That's why, a lot of these hedge funds will work with some prime brokers and they'll say, okay, get me out of this position and sell me out 20% of average daily volume. right? So they'll have the algorithms sell the hedge fund out of the position, but they'll take up 10% of the daily volume, so they don't crush the stock. Here's a good view looking back towards the Sherry Netherland. Peter says, what do you think of MicroStrategy's leverage? I think it's leverage in a different kind of way that would probably be isolated if it ever went down. Which, to Peter's point, right? I'm a big Bitcoin bull. I remain very, very bullish on Bitcoin. But there's usually one stock in a cycle. When the cycle ends, it has these big, blow-off tops, right? And funny enough, talking about Archegos, all the stocks that Archegos owned all did these parabolic blow-off tops. And I think Bill Wang even seeded Cathie Wood for some of her ETFs, right? And those stocks went down, 80, 90%. This bull market is going to turn into a mania, right? Nobody knows when it will. Nobody can predict or time the market. There'll be clues. But this bull market is going to get so strong that it's going to turn into the cartoon land mania of like the meme stock era. It just is, right? And in the last cycle, which was 4 years ago, when all of those tech stocks, those high beta tech stocks blew off, it was around the, telemedicine, SaaS companies, video conferencing companies and the like Zoom. That was kind of the category that put the nail in the coffin. This cycle, right, and I still think we have a long way to go. You're going to have corrections, you're going to have bear markets within the cycle, but when this thing tops, I think it's going to top with those crypto derivative companies. I call MicroStrategy a crypto derivative company because essentially if you're buying MicroStrategy, you're buying a levered long position on Bitcoin. So you get like 3x, 5x the vol of the S&P 500. So those stocks are probably going to go parabolic, and then, they'll crash 90%, just like, you had in the 2000 dot-com bubble. But these stocks could run a lot longer and a lot higher than anyone would ever expect, right? If you think about in 2007, I think was it the CEO of Morgan Stanley? I forget. But he says, look, as long as the music is playing, you have to keep dancing, right? When the music stops, it stops. But nobody is smart enough to know when. The only thing you could do is just have your sell rules, understand the characteristics of a blow-off, and when things are getting a little bit frothy. What do you guys think? Any thoughts? Like general thoughts? Hey, what's up, Lance? Good to see you. Hope you're well. Just a quick thought here, as a quick reminder. This week we will be sending out our 2025 market outlook, right? Talking a lot about specifically thematic investing. Every year, or I should say every end of the year, we put out like a markets a look ahead post. What are going to be the main themes for the next year? So if you guys want to read that, I'm going to probably drop that Thursday or Friday of this week. You can just scan the QR code on your screen, punch in your email, and it'll take you to our Substack, the Behind the Street newsletter. And there's a lot of interesting thematics, like nuclear energy will probably be number 1 or number 2. Sam Oliver says, right now I think we are frothing. a small correction in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. There is quite the froth in the market, but a lot of stocks are setting up, right? And all the major moving averages are above the 50-day. It's just a lot of things are getting extended, right? Now, to your point, this market will correct, right? Usually in a cycle, you'll have the general market pull back to the 50-day 3 or 4 times, right? Which would equate to an 8 to 12% pullback in the S&P, which is going to do a hell of a lot of damage to individual stocks, right? And, we talked about beta weighting a portfolio, understanding beta. So if the S&P 500 is down 10%, which is a pretty sizable correction, that's a massive correction, some of the individual stocks are going to be down 2x, 3x that, right? And then they set up again, they build out, a base, you get a follow-through day, and then you can get back into those names. And you usually have 4 to 6 of those in a bull cycle, and then you get the big bear market. So, a lot of these names are up and out already. It's been a really, really great year. I expect 2025 to be an exceptional year, but nobody knows what's going to happen. But if I had to throw something out there, I would say you'll probably see weakness in Q1. Right when Trump is inaugurated, you'll probably see weakness in the market. We'll probably have our first sizable correction. Maybe the S&P goes down, 10%. All of the leading stocks will go down maybe 2x that. Some of the big tech stocks will go down 30%. And then you'll have a setup again. And then we'll go on a monster run. Now, let me just give you a shot of the Deutsche Bank Center here. Something to keep in mind, okay? 2023, the S&P 500 finished up over 20%. 2024, right, I'm not going to jinx anything, but we're on track to finishing up another 20+%. There's only been one other time in history when we've had back-to-back 3 consecutive years of 20% plus gains in the S&P 500, and the most recent time was in the 2000 dot-com bubble, right? Leading up to the 2000 dot-com crash, we had 3 back-to-back years. Even if 2025, the S&P 500 ends the year, right, a year-to-date gain, up 12%, that's going to be a monster bull market. Even if the S&P gains 8%, it's going to be a monster bull market because some of the individual stocks are going to go up hundreds of percent. So that's kind of what I'm planning for. Anything can happen, right? Nobody can predict the markets, but I think all this corroborates with we get a correction during inauguration Q1, and then after that, we will kind of have our acceleration again. I mean, what do you guys think? Any just off the bat predictions as we're looking at the congestion pricing being put up again? Hey, what's going on, MD? Good to see you. This is Deutsche Bank is one of the worst offenders in the banking industry. Jack, this is Tom, come here to Miami. I will be there on Saturday. Arlo says, what you think about South Korea, what's Taiwan doing now? I'm not too sure what that means. The Korean piece, I think it's a non-issue. The martial law that was instated for like 3 hours. But what are you asking in regarding to Taiwan? If it's in relation to China, if you think China is going to make a move on Taiwan, I don't think so. Mainly because China is in no financial standing or economic standing to get in a hot conflict with anybody, because China is going through the West's 2008 right now. The People's Bank of China is throwing everything they got to bail out the Chinese property market, and the last thing President Xi needs, or dictator Xi needs, is a hot war. Kathleen is really worried about the South Korea situation, what is going on. Creates a lot of negative ripples in the U.S. I hope not. Well, it's just a lot of corruption of the government. If you look back throughout the history of Korean presidents, they either all get assassinated or they either all get impeached. And from my understanding, I'm no Korean expert, but I know a lot of people in South Korea. I believe they're going after the current president's wife on some insider trading or stock market manipulation stuff. There's a lot of kind of back and forth. They want to oust the current president. He's obviously getting a big ego, and he said, you know what? The opposing party has North Korean spies in it. I'm going to, declare martial law. Which I think will be a non-issue. I mean, if the market was really telling us that it was going to be a massive issue, you would just see the Kospi down, it would be at zero, pretty much, if it was going to be like an actual, infighting conflict, civil war within South Korea. But that's just my take. I mean, look what's happening in the United States, right? There's been lawfare, just unbelievable lawfare in the United States, right? Constant lawfare against President Trump. On the other side, you could say constant lawfare against Biden, right? That's not necessarily my position. We had a sitting president pardon his son, who's a criminal. And in the statement, Biden's like, this is, not a fair investigation of my son, so I'm pardoning him, even after he said that he wouldn't pardon him. So it's just all an ego, dog and pony corruption show. Unfortunately, that's what it is. Joe Hernandez. What was that? I think that was intended for the Trump Tower, but whatever she threw hit me instead of Trump. She's like, F you, Trump, threw something, but you hit me. You didn't even hit Trump. What the hell? Bastard. Anyway, Joe Hernandez, thank you so much for your $5 donation. Says, I just noticed you have 60,000 subs. I was number 468. Oh my God, that's right. Yeah, Joe, you've been here since the beginning, and I appreciate your support. That's crazy, right? I mean, 60,000 people are part of the channel now. So I appreciate everybody. And thank you for your support, and thank you for watching. This is 15 Central Park West. Harry Connors says, Tom, I'd pardon my son. Of course. And that's why I think it's also a non-issue, right? The market reaction to Joe Biden pardoning Hunter Biden is nothing. Because, guys, and again, I don't really want to get political, but it's obvious that, Joe Biden was going to pardon Hunter, even though he gaslighted the nation saying that he wasn't. But anybody who, has a room temperature or above IQ, it's obviously he is. It's his own son. If I was president of the United States, right, and it's my own blood, yeah, I'm going to ring the register on the pardon before I leave. I may not have gaslit the country for 4 years, but I'm definitely going to do it. So I have no hate that he did it. I mean, it's obvious that he was going to do that, but it's not even like a news event. I love the color on the Cybertruck here. But yeah, there was literally no market reaction. So to me, I think both events are non-issues. Maybe I'll be wrong, but you would see that in the markets, and the markets are unwavering. You have the U.S. markets today, right? The S&P 500 hitting a new all-time record high for a closing high, right? A closing high on the S&P 500. Yesterday we had an intraday record high, and right now, I mean, Korea's trading, right? Japan is trading. Asia Pacific is open for business right now. I mean, what are we trading at? Where's the Korean Kospi at right now? Even if it's down fractionally, if it was a real sustained, military style coup, you would see that market down. It would be getting hammered. It wouldn't be pretty. Hey, Cameron, thank you so much for your $10 donation. This is Tom. Thank you for telling me how 432 Park Avenue was built last week. Kind of similar to the World Trade. Cameron, thank you so much for your $10 donation. Yeah, the story of just all of those super talls are quite interesting in New York. Many people see these buildings go up in a few years, and they think that developers can just buy land and build as high as they want. But no, like Central Park Tower, 157, it took 20 years to build, technically, right? Because you have to go through the process of assemblage or assembling all the air rights to build that high, which is an interesting game all in and of itself. It's like a big, giant game of poker. There's a good book on this. I've recommended it multiple times. Catherine Clark is the author. Billionaires Row by Catherine Clark. She's one of the best journalists covering real estate for the Wall Street Journal. So if you want to know about Extel, Mackalow, all the major developers like JDS, check them out. It's a very, very interesting business, the New York City real estate business. I'm not sure if Mike is in the chat, but this is, speaking of beautiful New York City real estate, this is the Limestone Jesus here. 15 Central Park West. This is one of the most exclusive buildings in all of New York City. And it just so happens to be the home of former Wall Street megabank CEO, Lloyd Blankfein, former CEO of Goldman Sachs, who we ran into last month. It's a very pretty building. I mean, there's this debate in New York, and I think we could all kind of get into that debate. What is more aesthetically pleasing and more architecturally appealing? Is it the limestone buildings, or is it the super tall glass skyscrapers, right? I don't know. For me, it really honestly just depends on the day. But I think there's more character behind a building like 15 Central Park West or 220 Central Park South, which is a Vornado development. They just look a lot prettier, so to speak, right? It's a lot more craftsmanship, it seems like, it goes into it, I guess. But, I mean, what do you guys think? Adventure says both. MD says, I love pre-war buildings. So do I. I mean, in the pre-war buildings, you get those really beautiful fire escapes. Also, like the Brooklyn brownstones, the Upper West Side brownstones, the townhouses on the Upper East Side that are really beautiful. I mean, that's the great thing about New York. There's so much diversity in architecture, right? In some cities, they're like newer cities like Miami, which I love, but there's not really like a super, super diverse architecture. You have just Art Deco, and then you have, glass skyscrapers. There's really nothing in between. That's kind of why I love New York so much. Anyway, if you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams every night, starting at 8:45. We'd love for you guys to join us. Hey, we have Razzle Dazzle 786. What's going on? Any updates from San Francisco? I know that you have some boots on the ground in San Francisco. A few of my buddies actually recently just purchased some distressed, well, technically not distressed, but fire sale condominiums right in downtown San Francisco. I mean, these apartments are like 30% off from where they previously traded. And I think that once San Francisco gets a little bit safer and a little bit cleaner, that city's going to come roaring back. I think this election cycle, right, and I know that you guys don't like me to get political, but it does tie into the markets. The state that's going to benefit the most from the Trump-Vance presidency is going to be the state of California. The state of California is going to scream in terms of the economic output over the next 4 years. That's my prediction. A lot of people forget, I mean, the state of California is one of the largest economies in the entire world. It's a powerhouse. It's an economic engine. And when you have a restoration of, law and order and let's just say, the ease of doing business, the state of California is gonna really, really roar back. And I'm hearing some rumblings from some big real estate players that they're definitely going to be buying in some select cities of California. Razzle Dazzle says San Francisco is okay. The drug crisis is still really bad, but I do agree with your election comment. Let's hope for a better economy. Yeah, and the one thing that San Francisco, the Silicon Valley, the Bay Area in general has is the intellectual capital. Right? It has some of the best educational institutions in the world. Some of the smartest people in the world choose to start their companies in San Francisco, the Bay Area. And if you look at the percentage of VC investments, right, so money being driven into venture capital, it really hasn't wavered. The number one spot has been San Francisco. I mean, regardless what you hear, right, and, I have a vested interest in, kind of pumping Miami. I mean, I own property there. But the lion's share of VC investment is still in the San Francisco Bay Area. I mean, you really can't compete with it. It's very, very difficult. And that's with the terrible living conditions and the quality of life issues. So imagine once those get solved, I mean, it's going to be like a utopia over there, I think. Anyway, doesn't mean I'm right. That's just my overall thoughts. This is an interesting view of New York City's Billionaires Row. Emma is here. What's going on? Tomahawk says there is no sign of any restoration of law and order in San Francisco. Well, wasn't that new piece of legislation just passed that they voted on? Maybe we have some people who are from San Francisco in the chat. I forget the exact name of the law, but it was like a harsher on crime. It was like Prop something. I just forget. I'm just blanking on the name of it, just to be quite frank. But I think that just passed. Here's the... was it Prop 34 or 36? It was something. Anyway, I'm not really an expert in it, but here's the kind of the way I think, and we'll just sum up that conversation on San Francisco. I feel like we've gotten to a point in the country where, if one city leans more Democrat or more liberal, and if the other city leans more Republican or more, conservative, it's like we're rooting for each other's demise, which, we're all in this one country, the United States of America. So if, let's say, for example, like New York, if New York goes downhill and the economy in New York, goes in the toilet, that's not good for the United States, okay? That's not good for the country as a whole. So I think we should all want all of our major cities to be succeeding, right? Because that's more economic growth, more opportunities for all of us, right? We don't want this like bifurcated country of like dystopia nightmare, and it's like every different jurisdictions trying to undermine one another. That's like very inept and incompetent in my view. So hopefully that'll end. I don't know. That's just kind of my 2 cents on it. Let's take a look in the Deutsche Bank Center. Now, speaking of the Cybertruck and Elon Musk and Tesla, that judge in Delaware shot down Elon's pay package. I believe it was a $58 billion or $56 billion pay package. Even though the shareholders voted on it, that got shot down. So we'll see what comes about that. Maybe that'll be a short-term negative catalyst for the stock, temporarily. Jack Jackson says a lot can happen overnight. Just look at how they handled San Francisco when the president... Oh yeah, when Xi came. That's true. That's a good point. The LT Prod. Oh, nice. Joe says, I mod for a channel from San Francisco. Love that. Kathleen says, no place in the U.S. is immune from the drug crisis. Agreed. Carrie says, I live in San Francisco all my life. We have ups and downs. Too many people we're working from. Federal employees have to go back to the office soon. Ren 1018 says, San Francisco just selected a new mayor. Heir to Levi Strauss. Alright, let me just wait for the light here and cross. Now, if you're just joining, I had a little bit of an interesting day. In the morning, I ran into Anthony Scaramucci, really good guy. I respect him a lot, particularly all he's done for the cryptocurrency and Bitcoin industry. I ran into him right outside of my office, and then I ran into the Archegos founder, which is now a bankrupt hedge fund at a steakhouse, Gallagher Steakhouse. Bill Huang, which is kind of wild because I was like, wait, how are you here if you just got sentenced to 18 years in prison? But he was there nonetheless, and I think he has an additional court date sometime in, at the end of January. So at the beginning of the live stream, we kind of did a whole recap of just the hedge fund business in general, right? We talked about the founding father of the hedge fund business, Julian Robertson, and then the spin-off of all the Tiger Cubs. And I would say one of the most famous Tiger Cub hedge funds is run by Chase Coleman, and then the close number 2 is Archegos founder, Bill Huang, who took down Credit Suisse pretty much and almost a lot of the other banks. I think it was about a $30+ billion loss at the end of the day. So quite the interesting day. Just kind of makes you realize just how wild New York City is sometimes. You never know who you're going to run into here. And then we have, Dan Sang, what's going on? Good to see you. And then we briefly covered some interesting nuclear power news. Meta is the latest mega cap tech company to, the news with Meta is that Mark Zuckerberg and team is openly now seeking RFPs or requests for proposals to build and develop nuclear power sites to generate enough power to power their AI. They're focusing on 1 to 5 or 1 to 4 gigawatts, I believe. So that is where the puck is going. Nuclear power is the future, so it seems. So maybe there's a way that we can kind of ride that wave into the next decade to capitalize on that. Maybe there'll be a big bull market in power and energy. I think everybody is, or the NYPD is closing off Columbus Circle because they're doing the congestion pricing, or they're putting up the new cameras for the congestion pricing. I think that's what all this is for. Hey, Brian Forrest, what's going on? The LT Prod says it takes years to build nuclear plants, and the United States is very, very behind. It's so weird because the nuclear power industry has really been, demonized and bastardized over the last decade, and now everything is coming around to roost. And we actually have a shortage of talent. So even though we need to invest in the nuclear infrastructure, we don't even have the nuclear engineers in the United States to put on all these projects, which is pretty scary, honestly. Or maybe they're just paving things. Oh, maybe they're just repaving the road here. Mark Francis 076 says France has a lot of nuclear. Yeah, Macron has done a really good job with that. Mike G says, Tom, have you eaten at Keen's Steakhouse? I forgot who mentioned it. I don't think I have. But I know it's a very, very popular one here in New York. Along with Sparks Steakhouse is another big one, Sparks. Hello Mate 2008 says, hey Tom, what do you think about BRICS countries not using the dollar? I mean, I think that whole thing is a big non-issue. I take a lot of heat for saying that, but we had this big conversation about a year ago. Many people were saying, look, nobody's going to use the US dollar anymore. The US dollar is toast. It's going to be BRICS, 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 and, China is going to take over as well. I mean, how's that working out? I mean, just look at the Dixie. The Dixie's at 52-week highs, and look at all the currency pairs right now. I think the Indian rupee just hit a new all-time low, record low, against the U.S. dollar. Look at the yen-dollar pair. Just go across the board. This year is on track to have the most amount of commerce dollars, currency across the world, be settled in dollars. So the most amount of financial transactions are happening in dollars, and it's growing. So, plus with all of the craziness going on in the world, what do you think is a little bit more stable, right? With the big flare-ups in the Middle East, with the big flare-ups in Eastern Europe between Russia and Ukraine. I mean, do you want to be holding Russian rubles? Probably not, right? I mean, or do you want to be holding, I wouldn't want to be holding any fiat currencies. I'd want to, invest that money. And, but you get the point of what I'm trying to make. You'd want to be in dollars, right? A super, super strong economy, which, by the way, we just had GDP estimates for the United States revised up again. Okay? So a red-hot economy, it's not a slowing economy, it's a red-hot economy. Everybody that's been talking about a recession has really been wrong. I mean, just look at GDP growth. They were revising the GDP numbers up. Corporate earnings have come in, records across the board. So, the U.S. really has been the place to be. And I think it's probably going to stay like that, to be honest. Another controversial take I have is you would know if the dollar standard is in jeopardy, because we would be in a significant hot conflict or a war, in my view. What do you guys think? Any disagreements? I'm open to hearing any and all arguments, but it just doesn't seem like it's played out. If anything, the dollar is unbelievably strong against a basket of really global currencies. If you are an American and you're looking to have a really nice Christmas, travel to Europe. The dollar is extremely, extremely strong. If you want to do international travel for the holidays, now is the year to do it, if you're an American. This is the 57th Street station, the NQ and R trains. Now, we're going to be talking about that whole BRICS US dollar, currencies a little bit more in our 2025 Outlook thematic essay, which I will be sending out probably Thursday or Friday. I may be doing some traveling on Friday, so I may get it out late. So if you want to receive that, it's free. You can just scan the QR code in your screen, punch in your email, and you'll receive it. And I want your feedback, right? I'm not right all the time. Most of the time I'm wrong. Most of the time, many of the members in the audience in the chat here are right. So it's an interesting conversation to talk about the markets. But we will be sending that out probably Thursday or Friday. So if you want to receive that, feel free to just scan the QR code on your screen and just punch in your email, and that will bring you to our Substack. We usually publish every other Thursday. Hey, Canada, Carl Roth, what's going on? Says Canada is going to surprise the USA and its currency soon. Wait to see that, Tom. You will be surprised as well. Well, I mean, it seems like Trudeau wants to play ball. I mean, I'll give him credit. I mean, I'm not a big Justin Trudeau fan, but you gotta, hand it to him. He got on a plane and flew to Mar-a-Lago to kind of chop it up with Trump. It looks like Trudeau wants to deal. I give credit where credit's due. So he's a competitor. He wants what's right for Canada, which he should. We're probably political polar opposites, but what he's doing right now, in terms of Trudeau, he's fighting for Canada, and I respect that a lot. Now, here's another thing I'll also say. It doesn't have to be USA or Canada. It could be both. And Trump kind of, he said this and he didn't say this. He kind of said it in like a coy, smug way, in a very Trump-esque way. But if Canada wants to be pro-business and really play ball with the United States, it would really, really be unstoppable, which I think may happen. We just have to get Mexico to come around. But they're being a little bit more stubborn. Baker 504 says Canada should be the 51st state. I kind of view Canada as the U.S. The one thing, there's many, many things that I think the U.S. has Canada beat in, but an underrated thing that the U.S. crushes Canada in is the diversity in climate. And a lot of people underestimate that because they don't really view that as important, but it is important, particularly for immigration purposes, right? When it's winter in Canada, it's the freaking tundra in Canada, okay? There's no, going to another province in Canada where it's going to be 80 degrees with palm trees like you do in Miami, Florida, okay? So the United States is so diverse in its geography. You could literally in the same week have some of the best skiing, go to some of the best beaches, and be in the greatest cities on planet Earth, and you never even have to leave the country. So that is a huge advantage of the United States. That's another reason why I think the state of California is so appealing to many people, right? Because you could have some of the best skiing. You just go up in the mountains in California and it's snowing. And then you could have some of the best beaches. You go to Southern California and it has pretty much the best weather. You could probably argue in the world, right? I mean, some parts of California are just like the best picture perfect, 75 degrees, moderate, beautiful summer weather all year round. I think you could definitely make that argument. And that's why many people choose to stay in California and just eat those crazy taxes, because they're like, look, I've done well. You've been super successful and you want to use the money to live where you want to live, and nothing really compares to California. Oh, wow. NBA Elias says, Tom, Canada is worse than Buffalo, New York in terms of snow. I think our friends in Buffalo got hammered with like 2.5 feet of snow or something crazy like that. Jack Jackson says, "You're right, Tom. I live in Orange County. You can visit all 4 trains in one day/weekend. That's amazing. That's absolutely glorious." A.G. Jordan. The LT Prod says San Diego. That's one place in California I really want to visit, is San Diego. I've never been, but I plan on going. I would love to go. Oh geez, Harry Connor says there's 4 feet in Buffalo. I stand corrected. Ben Smith says, yes, Canadians are envious of our American neighbors' climate. Every time I'm down in Miami Beach, which I'll be down there this Friday, especially this time of year, I can't even tell you how many Canadian license plates I see. Tons of like Quebec license plates, lots of Canadians. We call them the snowbirds, if you will. So they'll come and escape the Canada winters and they'll enjoy Miami, Florida. Speaking of snow, this is a snowplow here. NBA Elias says, Tom, would you ever invest in property in upstate New York, Buffalo/Syracuse? No, never in my life. Not in my opinion, because I hate the snow. My investing thesis in terms of real estate, I would never buy a location where I wouldn't want to live myself. Because when I have to go visit the properties, I don't want to be miserable. I'd be miserable up there. So you buy what you know, you buy where you want to be, because it forces you to get a little bit better knowledge on the market. Now, where I would buy in upstate New York is in the Finger Lakes region. I would probably try to get my hands on some land in the Finger Lakes region, particularly Skaneateles, New York, mainly because it has some of the cleanest water, not only in the country, but the world. So if I had, a lot of disposable income, I would try to buy a big plot of land right on Skaneateles Lake. Just to keep. Maybe develop something interesting on it or lease it out. I don't know. Hello, Mate 2008 says Rochester, New York is in the Finger Lakes region. I think that's where the Wegmans headquarters is, which is the best grocery store on planet Earth, Wegmans. Here we are walking down Avenue of the Americas. It's the main Hilton Hotel. But if you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video. And click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams pretty much every day, starting at 8:45. Hey, Carl, this is Tom. I love the Hamptons, but the hype of it all sours. I want to buy and live there. The Hamptons is really, really nice. To your point, though, The problem with the Hamptons is, you know, that there's literally one road in and out of the Hamptons. And on the weekends in the summer, it's so unbelievably crowded that it's just not even like enjoyable almost. So I think there's much better places. I mean, I would much rather, go to Jones Beach. For me, I don't need the ritzy glitzy Southampton beach. I couldn't care less. I'd rather, drive me to Jones Beach, drive me to Robert Moses State Park. I got no problem with that. I used to grow up going to Robert Moses and Jones Beach. I love those beaches. Amazing, amazing state parks on the South Shore of Long Island. You don't have to hike all the way out to the Hamptons and, spend $80 on a cheeseburger. You can just go to All American, throw the guy a $10 bill, and they'll load you up in Massapequa. Ain't nothing wrong with that at all. Someone says Jones Beach is ghetto. It's definitely, I don't even understand what that means. Jigga says go to Long Beach. I have a place in Long Beach. I actually much prefer Jones Beach than Long Beach. I mean, if you want to talk about a freezing, desolate place, Long Beach, New York is absolutely freezing. And by the train station, there's a lot of riffraff over there. Right at the train station, right as you get off. Jones Beach is way better than Long Beach. And Long Beach, you have to buy that stupid pass. If you go out to Jones Beach after 4, it's free. And if you're a resident of Oyster Bay, the town of Oyster Bay, you could just go to Tobay Beach for free. You just get the pass. Show them your pass. If you haven't been to Jones Beach in a long time, they've completely redone it. They redid the boardwalk. There's just like so much stuff there. They did a really, really good job. All right, let's make this left, because I do have to get home earlier tonight. Christian says, Tom, in your opinion, why do New Yorkers usually not like Los Angeles? I don't know. Maybe just the walkability. I've never been to LA, but I would like to visit LA, though. Maybe just the main thing, it's difficult to get around on public transportation. That's really the only thing I can think of, right? If you live in LA, you probably need a car. Is that right? I guess it's different. If you live in New York City, you definitely don't need a car. But, LA traffic is probably really, really bad. Even though the public transportation system is kind of falling apart in New York, it's still very robust and it's reasonably reliable. I would probably say even more than reasonably reliable. It's just a little bit run down. But you can get anywhere you need to go just by taking the train, and that is super convenient. Hey, this is a Tesla Model Y, I think. I think that's the EV that I would get. This is the St. Regis Hotel. It's absolutely beautiful in there. Wow, the St. Regis is amazing. Look at how nice it looks in there with the chandeliers. Everybody's sitting down, probably having a nightcap. Such an amazing historic building. And then we have Jeffrey's just to the right. So those were kind of the main things we talked about today. Obviously the S&P 500, a new closing record high. Big news out of Meta, accepting RFPs now for nuclear power to power their data centers and AI. That seems to be the main thematic for 2025 is nuclear power. Kind of skate to where the puck is going there. Also, Salesforce, Mark Benioff and company reported earnings. The stock is up 10% after hours. Gap and go there. Great quarter. And then we had some interesting news. I ran into Anthony Scaramucci right here on the sidewalk this morning. Lots of respect for Anthony with everything he's done in the crypto world and the Bitcoin world. And then I was eating lunch at Gallagher's Steakhouse and ran into Archegos founder Bill Hwang, who has been sentenced to 18 years in prison. So it's been quite the eventful day, running into two big hedge fund managers, one of which a Tiger Cub, one of the original Tiger Cubs from Julian Robertson days. Anyway, I gotta go, everybody. A little bit early tonight. I do apologize. We gotta cut the show about 30 minutes short. But if you enjoyed it, feel free to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you are new. And again, a quick reminder, we will be sending out our 2025 market outlook thematic piece either Thursday or Friday. I may be traveling on Friday, so I may see you guys in Miami, Florida on Saturday. If you want to receive that, just scan the QR code on your screen, punch in your email, and we'll see you guys soon. Have a great night. Jules, thank you so much. DC322, Muhammad, Hello Mate 2008, Larry Adams, Adventure Out and About, appreciate you. Carl Roth, appreciate it. Brad's Brain, cheers. Jack Jackson, Chloe, Alan, appreciate you. West Coast Walker, Chris. We will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.